So what is your last name, by the way?
Wigington.
All right, Beau Wigington.
Beau Wigington, also known as Beau James.
Beau James.
Also known as Chuck Mountain.
Chuck Mountain is the name I'm familiar with. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like music, I went by Beau James just because nobody could spell Wigington. Like I was living in LA and I worked at this place called the Complete Actors Place, and it was like it was an acting studio, but they had music there. And the guy that was the owner, he was just like, "You need to change your name to just get rid of Wigington, just go Beau James." And I was like, "All right," so I did it, and now I confuse people all the time.
I mean, I've heard of that. Like, it's I think a lot more common for actors to change their last names, isn't it, than musicians?
Well, like SAG. So, like, say you want to go join the Screen Actors Guild or like Actors Equity. If there's someone with your same name, you have to change it. Like I went to UNCG for acting, and one of my friends joined the Actors Equity Union, and his name was TJ Austin, and he had to change it to like TJ Austin or something, like just change it a little bit because there was already somebody with the same name out there.
I just saw an interview recently with Willem Dafoe, who apparently has been just letting everyone mispronounce his name all this time. And he made it sound like it was just somebody started with a mistake and he just rolled with it. But I would think it was something more like that. I would think it would be like, he had to go by a different name.
Yeah. Well, there was, like, when I was in high school, I got a job at Red Lobster, and they called me, and I was in a movie, and they called me, and they're like, "Is this Bean?" And I was like, "Yeah." I popped out. They're like, "We want to bring you in for an interview." I was like, "Okay, cool." Went in, interviewed, got the job, came in the first day, and they had my name tag, and it said Bean.
Bean.
Because they thought my U was an N. And I was like, "Yeah, no, my name's Beau." And they're like, "Oh, well, we can't change it. Like, that's just what it's going to be." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I was Bean for quite some time.
That's kind of an awesome name.
Yeah, Bean Wigington.
My grandfather's name was Henry Vestal Nail, and his name was Henry Vestal Nail Jr., but his father's name was, at the end of his life, was Vestal Henry Nail. So there was no Henry Vestal Nail Sr. All of this because I think when he was in the military or something, the story was they put his name on a document backwards, and it just was the easiest for him to just go by a different name instead of having to go through the paperwork of updating his name.
It's paperwork. It'll scare people off, Yeah,
especially in like the 1940s, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like my grandpa, his name was William Roy Wigington, but everybody called him Pete, and nobody knew why.
Yeah.
They were just like, "Your name's Pete," because like everybody, like my dad's name's William, his name was William, my great uncle was William. There's a bunch of Williams in my family.
That was like a thing in that generation. My like I said, his name was Henry Vestal Nail. But his family called him Tommy, and which there's no overlap at all between those names. And all of his sisters and stuff, it was the same thing. And some of them would be name me, like some of them would be, her name would be Harriet, but they'd call her Mary. But some of it would be like her name was Sarah, and they called her Tote Bag or something. And it's like, what are these names?
Doesn't make much sense all the time.
Cool generation, though.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you went to school for acting.
Yep.
Are you from here?
I'm from Colorado originally. So
how'd you end up here?
My dad, he worked for Siemens Medical Solutions, and
oh, wait,
down in Raleigh.
Okay.
So we got moved out here in 2004, I think, and finished up high school down there, and then went to UNCG, and like I was gonna go for music, but then I got in their like BFA acting program, and they only take 12 people a year, so it's like if you get in, you got to do it. And so I got in, and like by the second year, I started a band, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do acting, but I'll just finish it out. So I took all kinds of courses that my dad was just like, "Why are you taking hat making?" And I was like, "I want to learn how to make hats." It's like did puppetry, hat making, did a lot of African dance classes.
Really?
In the performance program, you have to take a certain amount of dance classes. And I tried ballet, I tried jazz, and I was like, African dance is going to be the way I go. So I did like three 3 years of African dance, and it was so much fun. It was a workout. But then I just wanted to pursue music, and when I graduated college, moved right out to LA and just hit the ground running out there, just working a bunch of different jobs. And then I ended up getting a job as a music consultant, which I'd made the playlist for hotels, restaurants, casinos, all the background music you hear. I was the guy making those playlists.
Interesting.
And it was really cool because that got me into the licensing world, because I had a client, Pinkberry. It's a big frozen yogurt chain, and they always wanted they wanted new music, so I had to learn licensing music for background music. And then that got me into the licensing music for film and TV, because I was meeting supervisors and directors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so LA was cool. It was just super expensive. You're always in the car, and you got the Sunset Strip that's really cool to play, but you got to sell those tickets.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. And then the band I was in out there, we moved to Nashville, and then Nashville, everybody started getting more work. So I was in a rock band and switched into just doing more Americana singer-songwriter stuff as Beau James. And then moved out here, started Chuck Mountain, which was one of my old nicknames out in Nashville.
Chuck Mountain?
Chuck Mountain. It was, have you ever been to the basement?
I don't think so.
So
in Nashville, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So there's a venue called the Basement, and have you ever heard of Grimey's Record Store?
Maybe.
It's in the basement, so it's underneath it. And I was working there as a bartender, and started off on the door, and they had this event where there was a bunch of kids at, because it was some younger singer doing an in-store performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so it let out, and there was all these high school kids, and the owner was like, "Hey, don't let any of these kids in, no one under 21 coming in." I was like, "Oh, I'll chuck them out." And he was like, "Chuck Mountain? That's a really good name. That's your nickname now." And I was like, "Okay." So we just rolled with it.
Chuck Mountain.
Chuck Mountain, man.
So that's where it came from.
Yeah, it's been around, and everyone's always like, "What is this name?"
Yeah.
And it's been very hard trying to kind of figure out a brand for it, because I automatically start thinking mountain-esque things. It's I want it to be oh, we're going to summer camp, or we're going hiking, and then people hear the music and they're like, this does not match. And it's been a very interesting branding journey, but we're still not there.
Well, there's a lot of things that I want to talk about. I want to make sure we talk about. I want to learn a little bit about life in LA and what you did out on the West Coast. I want to talk about Nashville, but the first thing I notice as we get to know each other is, and this might sound a little strange, but identity is kind of an interest of mine. And just from getting to know you, you seem like kind of this might be the Colorado in you, I'm not sure, but you seem like a Southern guy, kind of normal. I see you got some tattoos on your arms, and I often feel actors I often don't think of as wearing camouflage hats and having cool tattoos and stuff. I think sometimes they're a lot more oh, I have to look this way, I have to look this other thing.
Yeah,
that's the first thing I notice. And plus you have a beard and you're into music, so
yeah.
What has that identity conflict been like, I guess?
Well, when I was in acting school, I got my first tattoo when I was in high school, but it was on my butt. So you don't see it. But I got one up here on my arm, and my voice teacher was just like, "Well, you just ruined your career," so then I started getting more and more tattoos, and they're just like, "Yep, I guess you don't want to be an actor," because they're like, "Don't get any tattoos. You'll have to cover it." Because if you're an actor, they want to have a blank slate to work with, But these days, tattoos are way more acceptable.
Yeah.
It's and it's weird to think back 10, 15 years ago, it was like pretty edgy still, but now it's just like everybody's got tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the identity thing, I don't know. I've been in so many different places that it's just, I've been a hard one to nail down. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, it definitely is a weird. I'm very ADHD, and my passions in life is like, it's like one day, like right now, what I'm doing is like I weld, I bartend, I'm in Chuck Mountain. We are shooting like a beer review show, and then I do these videos for weld.com and do like welding for companies around town. And it's just like every day there's something new I'm working on. And
Yeah.
I love it, you know, but people are like, you're crazy. I don't know how you do it. And I don't know either, but it keeps me more sane having too much to do than having nothing to do.
I'm in a very similar boat right now, though I don't know how much more I don't know how long I can sustain exactly what I'm doing, but I'm doing like a full-time gig, another gig that's like pretty not overly demanding, and it's a little bit more, it's a little easier going and more enjoyable kind of to a degree because it's just less physical. And then I've got the podcast, and then I've got shows starting to go on. So it's just like, and all this, basically I had 2 years of being bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
And now I'm spread so thin.
Yeah.
Is that what, before COVID or whatever? Like, is this kind of a new thing that you've got all this shit going on?
It's pretty new. I mean, before COVID, but it was funny because like right before the October before COVID happened, I quit. Like I was working at a bar down in Greensboro, like me and my wife both were, and I quit to like do just music full time again. And I was just gigging all the time, built up a big old like schedule worth of shows, and was planning on moving back to Nashville in March of 2020. And so we were getting prepared to go and like start checking out places, and a tornado hit East Nashville.
Yeah.
And that's where we were going to go. And so, so we were like, well, maybe we'll hold off, you know. It's like we'll hold off until it kind of like chills out, because I had a bunch of friends there that like were homeless, you know, because a tornado destroyed it.
Yeah.
And then
That's horrible.
2 weeks later, COVID hit, and like everything shut down. And it was like, well, I guess it was a good thing we didn't move out there right away, you know.
Yeah.
But I was I was just focused on one thing before, and then like just going insane being at the house and trying to do. Did you do Twitch or like online streaming during COVID?
I did not. I watched it a lot, and I decided to avoid it.
Yeah.
I mean, that time period is what inspired what I'm doing. And we talked before, or as I mentioned when you were texting, I still want to do kind of like, I want to do a high quality version of something that's like online streaming, because I think it's a cool market. But
Yeah.
I hated it all.
Yeah.
Like, it was so bad to like watch it through phones, you know?
Yeah.
It just wasn't the ideal setup, I thought.
Yeah, one of my old roommate in Nashville, he was doing full-time streaming like when I still lived there. And so like when COVID hit and everything was like moving on online, he like helped me set up a channel and like get rolling. And I was doing it like 5 days a week for like 2 or 3 hours at a time, and I just couldn't stand it. I was like trying to keep up with chats and like requests, and there's just too many bells and whistles. I was like, I just miss playing, like just being able to play a song.
Yeah.
And afterwards people are like, yeah. And it's like, instead it's like, oh, hey, thanks for stepping in. What's up? And then you like try to like remember the lyrics that you're trying to sing all at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by people that can do it, you know? It's like, but it ain't me.
I don't think it's the right. I mean, I'm not judging people who do it. Like, and if people can figure out how to do it and it works, then more power to you, because it does seem like more and more that's the path that a lot of people are following necessarily, and it's fine that they're doing that, especially with streaming, fucking so many people out of money. But I don't often feel like it's the avenue for music, really. I feel like it makes a lot of sense for YouTube culture, for like personalities, and for listening to people just bitch and be cynical about life. But it's not how I think to experience music. The only thing if you could figure out, who Snarky Puppy is?
Yeah.
Those videos that they make when they have like a live audience in the room
Yeah.
with them as they do their thing. If I could watch that live, I would. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I like just watching, basically feeling like I'm at an open mic or something.
Yeah.
It just doesn't speak to me. And I assume that if I did it, it wouldn't speak to people either.
Yeah. Well, there was like some channels that they really crushed it. It's like, because part of like being on Twitch is you have to go and support other people so they'll support you back. It's like,
oh, is that a thing?
Yeah. You gotta like, you go through and like there's this one guy, I don't remember his name, but I loved his setup because like it looked like he was in like a gypsy tent and he just like sat there and played songs. Like he didn't even talk to people. Like I was like, this guy knows what's up.
Yeah.
It's like his production was like crushing it, had everything super dialed in. It just was really fun to listen to, but like he didn't care about comments. He would just sit there and play.
That's the way to be.
I was like, that's what I need to do, But I had like I shared a fan base with my friend that had been streaming full time, and they were very adamant on talking to you, And I was like, and I wanted to give them that for like supporting me, It's like I'll chat with you, but then it just got too much, and I was like, I'm done. I'm just gonna go to welding school.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
I did think about Twitch for a minute because I do have a Patreon, and I like the Patreon, but like I don't know. I at one point Twitch stream was like associated with one of my goals. Like if I reach a certain level of audience, then I'll start doing the streaming thing. And I haven't reached that level, and I think I might have even taken that goal off just because I don't think I know what Twitch is well enough to even offer it as a thing. I don't understand the culture.
Yeah, it's a lot more involved than you think. It's like, well, definitely than I thought. I was like, oh, we're just gonna get on there and play, and people are gonna give me money. It'll be cool. You know, it's like this would be a way I can support myself, and it's like, no, it's like you got to learn all these different raids and making little channel like giveaway there's just so much
badges and stuff.
Yeah, badges, making the badges, making your channel art, like setting up different scenes and count-ins, and it's like I got really good at like setting stuff up and helped a whole bunch of other people set up stuff. But I was like, I'll set up anybody's, like if all you want me to do is set it up, I'm all about it. But if you want me to stream, I'm not about it.
Yeah. So how long were you in LA for?
I was in LA from like 2010 until 2013.
Okay.
So about 4 years. And it was pretty cool. I mean, I struggled the first couple years out there for sure, just because it's so expensive. And I was driving a truck that was like, I had for like 15 years, and gas out there is pretty much what it is right out here now. It's like that was just normal out there.
Yeah.
And it just being in the car, no matter where you went, like I lived like 6 miles away from my job, and it'd take me an hour and a half to get there. I was
Good
like,
God.
man, this is so lame. Every day, back and forth. And it was really cool. I liked the culture of LA, like the musicians, once you started getting into like open mics and everything and meeting different people trying to make it out there, it's like there's like different classes of people. There's like the people who've made it, there's the people trying to make it, and the people that are just there. It's like there's more actors out there than musicians, but there's a bunch of musicians still.
Yeah, I get the feeling from a very limited knowledge, but like it is still one of those places where if you're in the entertainment industry on a national scale, it makes sense to live there, even within music, and therefore probably worth considering, even for like anybody throughout the country that wants to be an actor. They know to move to LA, but some musicians think they want to live near Nashville, some want to live maybe near New York, but seems like LA is too still one of those places for music too.
It's cool. I mean, there's like different vibes like playing around LA. Like I was in a band called the Heavy Heavy Hearts, and we were like in your face rock and roll, like blues rock, And so we played, our favorite spot was Harvell's, It's like a blues club down in Santa Monica off of like 3rd Avenue or 4th Avenue. I can't remember now. But it was like this cool, small, like dark room, red leather, like booths all around, velvet paintings on the walls. You know, it was super cool. And then you go and play like the Whiskey A Go Go, and it's just like you got to get on, set up in 10 minutes. You play for 30, and then you have to be off stage in 5 minutes. You know, and it's just like that's not as much fun. You know, and then we got really big into the biker culture. Like a bunch of my friends were in a biker club, and they started getting us on like motorcycle runs. So we'd go and just like play. Like our favorite one, I played one at a bar that was in the middle of absolute nowhere. Like there was no cell phone reception. The bar was owned by the Devil's Disciples, and it was just like this small little bar. And we played, like as soon as we rolled up, people were like, "You got to tell us whose moonshine's the best." And they're like, "We all made moonshine. You got to try it." And I was like, "Okay." And so we tried a bunch of moonshine, and then stumbled through one set, and then sobered up for the full band set. But like we would get in those, that's kind of where we moved into. It was like we were doing venue shows and everything, but then we just moved into more just playing motorcycle events. And that's a way different side of LA. You know, it's like most people think like Hollywood, and you know, it's like there's a big biker culture out there. Like biker builders, like a bunch of custom builders out there. There's an event called Born Free that happens out there every year, and it's just like builders from like all across the nation come out. It's like 3 days, and you can just like there's just like thousands of custom motorcycles that people come and bring to show off, you know. And I like that side of LA a lot more, but the other sides, it's just you get lost really easy out there. Like you can go down some dark holes, you know.
That's what I would imagine. So I asked a friend of mine I'm fascinated by what has happened with the comedy scene in LA in particular, and the way that they've networked, and also the way that performance can work for comedians in LA. And based on what you were just saying, I wonder if there's similar networks out there for music, like you know, a comedy club might have 4 or 5 people booked, but other people might be able to show up and hang out and still do sets throughout the night. And it's just one person and a microphone so they can jump up. Is there more, like those places you were talking about playing, is there more of a space out there that's capable of facilitating musicians in a spontaneous way where a bunch of musicians are able to kind of play on a given night at a certain club?
There's a place called the Federal in North Hollywood that was a really cool bar, but there's like open jams, there's like blues jams all over town, but that was one where you'd like go and there'd be just like rippers on that one. And then there's another place called the Baked Potato that was like a blues club, but they would have like an open jam, and you'd see like the drummer from Everclear was like there a lot, just like sitting in playing with people. And like my old guitar player, he was just really big on these open jam nights because he would go to them all, and he was a phenomenal guitar player. Like I can't hang like that. Like I can't go to an open jam and just be like, yeah. I'm gonna sing. You guys know this one, you know? Because like back then I was like very anti covers. I didn't want to learn anybody else's music because it would taint mine, you know. And now I'm like, that was so stupid, you know. This is like that's how you get better, you know, and get inspired. But yeah. That's the only thing I know of where people can get up and just it's kind of a spontaneous performance. But LA, when I was there, at least, it was very like, there was a ton of events, but it's just like, this is this event, and these are the people playing, and we're promoting this, and there's no room, you know? It's like, it was very cold. Like, LA was way cold, and Nashville was warm, you know? It's like, it was a welcoming embrace. LA was like, nope. If you can't do anything for me, don't talk to me, you know. There's a lot of those moments, but
yeah. So okay, you were there till like 2013,
and then
did you say you lived in Vegas?
No, no,
Okay.
no. I worked like so. I did music at the Monte Carlo. Like I did background music for different places out there. So like the Monte Carlo, and then I think I did Caesars, like parts of Caesars, and then I did. There was a 24-hour restaurant that I don't even remember which one it was, but they had a different playlist for every hour of the night, and it was just a nightmare to do because it was like making 24 playlists every month for them. But I was in Vegas quite a lot. We would go just do like 48-hour runs because it was like 5 hours to drive out there. We'd just drive out, party all weekend, and then drive back and go to work and not sleep in like 2 days. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's like those days are gone.
Yeah. Nah, fuck that.
Yeah.
I have come to appreciate sleep so much more than I ever used to.
I love sleep.
Yeah.
I love sleep. I don't get as much as I want to these days with like bartending at night.
Oh, yeah.
But I only bartend a couple nights a week, but still, it's like we work on like the band stuff. We're shooting like 2 days a week, like doing a live video, doing a beer review show, and then still practicing. And we'll just be out, like, because my bass player bought the house right next to mine, so he has a big old shed that we're turning into a studio. And
Nice.
so it's too easy to get together and work on stuff. So we're always out there until like 11 or 12, and we're just like, we should go to bed, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like I got to get up and be going at 8, so we should probably go get some sort of sleep.
Yeah.
But
God, morning jobs.
yeah.
Sons of bitches.
I know.
So did you move to Nashville in 2013?
Yes.
Yeah.
October 26th. Remember the date.
Interesting. Why do you remember the date?
I don't know. It was a very big like shift in life. Like we were getting out of LA because like I was doing bad on the alcohol side. Like I was getting very bad. And so we all decided, it'd be better for us to be in Nashville for like touring, and we thought it's like our music will fit more there. So let's all move. But it was also like a big move to like try to get me out of drinking as much as I was. And then we moved to Nashville where everyone's a professional drinker anyway, So I was like, what? But yeah, we moved out there. We moved into this. We found a place on Craigslist when I was living in LA, and one of our friends went and checked it out. They're like, yeah, it's cool. And like, we moved out into this place that was in Pegram, which is like West Nashville. And it's like just outside of Nashville limit. And it was like way up in the hills. And half of the house was insulated. Half of it wasn't, because they had like built an addition. And we didn't find that out until the winter. And we were like, sweet. But yeah, all of us moved into the same house, and it was super crazy because we'd always like go play and then invite everybody back to our house for bonfires and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a fun time in life, but it was definitely a crazy time in life.
Yeah.
But that's what your 20s are for, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's, you got to take some risks and figure this shit out.
Yeah.
So did you live in Nashville for a while?
I lived there until 2017.
Okay.
I lived out there for about four, almost 5 years too.
So was it helpful to your music career? Like, did
Yes.
it accomplish what you hoped? Like, did you make some connections that you hoped you would, or whatever?
I feel like I grew more as a musician being there. Like, I feel like when I was living in LA, it's like I thought I was good, and then I moved to Nashville and I found out I wasn't, because you go out in every single bar, everyone's better than you, know? So it makes you like work harder on crafting a better song, playing to like even just backing people up. It's like learning how to play to a song instead of just play on a song. It's like the craft aspect of music that Nashville totally changed my world. It's like I used to be in the school of like, can only write if I'm inspired, inspiration has to hit and that's it, and then moved out there and then learning the craft side where it's just like, okay, we need a song about pickles, it's like, and so I write for a company called Songfinch.
I'm on Songfinch too.
You're on Songfinch?
Yeah.
Rob's the guy that started it. He's one of my buds from LA.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Do you know Brian Weirkamp? He was on the podcast a week ago. Brian was like they're one of their first artists, or maybe number one, like their first artist that they ever that ever joined it or whatever.
I was right there with him, man.
Yeah, he's a Winston dude, and he's how I learned about Songfinch.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I tell everybody about it. Like, especially musicians, it's like if you're trying to, like when it first started out, it was way different, It's like now it's like a lot more streamlined, but like it's been cool because like I've been writing with them since I think like 2017 is when he started it, because one of their A&R people reached out to me, and I didn't know it was Rob's company until like they're like, yeah, we were interested in you like submitting a song for us. And then I found out it was my buddy's company, and I reached out to him like, what's up, man? It's like, you got people trying to recruit me. It's like, what's up? And like just working with him for the past, I don't know, 5-6 years. Like,
yeah.
It's been a long time, but I took a break last year when I started welding. Like I went to welding school, and it was just like super hardcore.
Yeah.
So I took a break, and I'm just about to come back. I'm revamping like all my stuff, and about to, like, my old roommate, he's doing like 20 songs a week. And he's like, you need to get in and just start doing it. And I was like, all right.
I mean, if I could figure out how to do 20 songs a week, maybe I would do that, because it's honestly, it's such a weird experience to do Songfinch, man.
Yes.
Like, I don't know how it is for you, but every single time I read one of those submissions, I guess for people who aren't listening, or for people who aren't aware, but who hopefully are listening, Songfinch being a service where people can order a customized song for a person, for an occasion or something. I had one last week that was like somebody's 1-year wedding anniversary, and they wanted to order a song for their husband, and they were going to surprise him with it. So they provide a bunch of details about their life, about their names, and how they met, and the story of their relationship. And then artists like us can take that story and interpret it, and kind of take the cues of the mood that they want the song to be, and create a song for them for some cash. And it's a cool little service. So I joined it probably about a year ago. Every time I get a submission and read it, almost every time, it almost brings tears to my eyes, because it's just like, for more than a decade, songwriting for me has been all about myself, and all about like what I think, and my intellect, and my poetry and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then to like take that part of me and put it into somebody else's sentiment and their like appreciation for somebody makes me really fucking emotional for some reason. I'm just like, I can't not feel a lot from that. And then anytime I successfully do it, succeed at like creating a song that actually somebody really loves, it just like it just is a really weirdly emotional experience for some reason, I guess, because it's like taking that craft and letting it not be about me for a little while, letting it be about somebody else,
Well, it definitely, like, Songfinch is part of that craft, that change into the inspiration to craft, It's like it really developed that side of me where it's like, it's like I've had some really, really sentimental songs with them. I've had ones where they're like, yeah, we want a song about ghost pirates fighting a jeweled octopus and a majestic sea otter.
Really?
It's like I've had some weird
like
ones,
trippy, unexpected things.
Yeah. Just I've had some like super strange briefs, and I've had some like just like really, it's like, oh man, I really hope these people like this because I like this story, And you just learn a lot about strangers that you don't know who they are. You'll probably never meet them, and they'll probably never know who you are. They'll probably never reach out.
Yeah.
And like, I kind of like that, where it's like, I feel like as musicians, we spend a lot of time on the stage trying to get people to invest in our emotions. It's like, but being able to, from behind the scenes, invest into their story and their emotions, and then just give it to them. And it's just like something it's not part of, like, I'm not going to go and try to promote this, I'm not going on tour being like, I wrote this song for these people's wedding and I hope you really like it. You know, it's kind of like a gift,
It is. Yeah.
And like, I feel like people don't really see the value in art that is, like, I think Songfinch is a super valuable thing for people, and people don't understand how valuable it is. I feel like it's something that it's like, yeah, well, that sounds fun. You're like, well, we'll get a song like that. It's like, but it's like, it takes your creativity to really dial it in. And that's something that you usually can't just buy somebody's brain,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah.
So that's something I really like about it, but it's also sometimes I get really frustrated with.
Yeah, there's a different side to it. Now,
Yeah.
while I have those emotional experiences, I can't say that I enjoy like associating discipline with songwriting, because I want songwriting to be very free and very impulsive and very like personal.
Yeah.
I do want it to stay about me and my mind usually. So doing Songfinch feels like a bit of a creative sacrifice in some ways, I will admit, though it's worthwhile to me. It's like the positivity outweighs that sacrifice, but I don't want to practice too much like commission songwriting, or like, I mean, even maybe if I lived in Nashville, I would feel differently about this, but I don't go into recording projects of my own thinking like, okay, I need to design this thing like how an album would be out. I need like a fast song, a slow song, a happy song, a sad song. I don't do that at all. My shit is like, I want it to be like, I let my psychology and my problems kind of create themselves into rhymes, and I don't want it to be more organized than that. So it's sometimes it's a little bit of a, I don't want it to sound bad, because I fuck with Songfinch as a company. I think they're super fucking cool. I'm not begrudging the fact that I'm doing this, but it's just that I don't want to lean wholeheartedly into associating that disciplinary craft, with not disciplinary, but that the discipline associated with a craft within my songwriting too much.
Well, and that's something that I mean, I've done a lot of songs for Songfinch, and it was like there was a period there where I was like doing multiple a week, and it was like the full custom one, so it's like a fresh, 100% fresh song, fully produced in a couple days, and that was like, it got me really good at making tracks and developing my own like sound, it's like getting the best sounds out of what I have,
Yeah.
and learning how to just kind of just be like, okay, this is the time that I just need to make this happen, and still being creative with it. It's like making the rhymes out of what people give you is like, ever since the beginning, they're like, it's like Mad Libs, it's like, it's like, yeah, these are drivey Mad Libs, more like it, because like sometimes you're just like, I have no idea how to make this sound interesting. It's like, we met at a bowling alley. He bought me LITs and Oreos, and I knew he was mine. And it was like, I'm going to try to make this sound sentimental, It's like,
yes, I know.
But
Yes.
it's just like, I think that's something also that separates a non-musician's mind from a musician's, or a songwriter's mind from a non-songwriter's mind, is like, things that we think are going to be impactful for people is way different than what like my aunt thinks is going to be impactful. It's just like, you know what, you should really write a song about a crystal ball, it's like, sounds cool, it's like, but I have a different view of what that's going to be cinematically in my mind.
Cinematically is the right word. Yeah.
Well, because that's what, like with music, like I have a very cinematic mind around it. Like whenever I'm writing, it's like I like writing when I'm way tired, late at night. So like that critic isn't really there. It's just kind of like whatever's going to pop into my mind is going to pop into my mind.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's my like personal music. It's like learning how to separate all right, I got to get this done because like this is a commission. And then like I'm going to write for me. It's just like, all right, I have my time where I'm just going to write in the middle of the night. Like a lot of times when I get done bartending at night and I come home and I have to unwind, that's like prime time writing for me, because I'm just going to sit there and space out for a while trying to come down from like being super stressed all night. But
yeah. I think we probably have a lot in common there about first letting it be, like letting it flow that way without being critical of it for personal writing, and yeah, like the whatever the freedom that is within that approach to it. And like when you say cinematic, I think of it as like visual and narrative. Like that's, I think, what I'm hearing and that's definitely how I approach things with my own songs, and Songfinch and commissioned songs definitely goes against that in a lot of ways, because it's all about, like, it's not that there isn't a narrative, but with pure narratives you can take those as far as you have to tell a story. With these, it's a micro narrative. It's like it's a window into one time period and a very specific feeling related to all that, which is usually positivity instead of like. And I also find in my songs there's usually like a conflict in them. There's usually like there's usually like this identifying some kind of feeling that I either want to have or used to have, and what it is that it's up against. And like letting those things duke it out a little bit. And there's always like negative and positive in my songs. Songfinch songs, you can't have negative shit in there. It has to be positive.
Sometimes people want, like, I've written like a breakup song for them before.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh God, I never even thought of that.
I get a lot of like I would get a lot of the off the wall ones, because they're like, we don't really know what to do with this one. Do you think you could make it happen? I'm like, yeah, I got you. I like that type of challenge. And like there was like a pod in the beginning, they were reaching out to a bunch of podcasts, and so like I was writing songs for podcasts. Like there was one where it was 2 Girls, 1 Ghost podcast. I still love that one, and I wrote him this banger. Like I wrote him a banger.
Yeah.
Because they said that they had like a ghost that was haunting their podcast, so I wrote about that.
That's fun.
And then like submitted it. They loved it, and then I told them like, my house is haunted. Like my house is definitely haunted, and I told them all about it, and they put my story on the podcast and everything. And like I like doing off the wall stuff with music a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to just be a songwriter, It's like,
I mean, I wish I was getting some of those, because that sounds like an interesting challenge. The most challenging one I've had from Songfinch was like somebody, I don't know, somebody, I told Brian about this last week. It was like, I wrote this song, I never got any feedback about it, and then like the next email that Songfinch sent out to us as creators was like, hey guys, I just wanted to like be encouraging, because sometimes clients just can't be happy, and like that's it's just sometimes they aren't happy with stuff, and it's okay. And I was like, I wonder if that was my song.
Was that me?
Because and the song, the detail he wanted, I can't for the life of me remember what country, but he was like, we took this trip to this country, and it was like a Baltic. It was one of those countries that sounds horrible to say and doesn't rhyme with anything.
Oh yeah.
So it was like, the song would have been like, and we went to Slovakia. I can't put that in a song. Are you kidding me?
The pronunciations are very tricky when doing that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And even like there's people's names sometimes. It's like, I have no idea how to say this, so I'm just going to guess, and then wait for the feedback saying that's absolutely wrong, and wait for them to phonetically write it out, Because
not to mention there's ugly names,
Yeah, like Beau.
Like, what if you like had to sing the name Harriet sentimentally in a song?
Hey, I could do it.
It's gonna sound like Harry at first.
Yeah, but then you just sprinkle on that it after Harriet. Just give them a little spice at the end.
Oh. Songfinch is a weird thing. So, tell me about this ghost. Can you tell me about this ghost?
Oh yeah. So I bought this house when I was in college, moved in, and then I was hanging out there one day with a buddy, and like my kitchen is attached. Like there's a doorway that goes into, like, I have my living room, but there's a doorway that goes into the kitchen, and then there's a hallway that goes down to the rooms. And we were sitting there, and he saw somebody walk by. We were like, huh? And so went and looked, and nobody was there. Sat back down, saw him walk back by, and he just left. And I was like, awesome. So then later on, like everything's kind of coming from this room that's right across from our room. Like we have like our master bedroom, and then across the hall is like this other room, and that's the ghost room. And one day, so I had a roommate that was living in there, and one day he like got up to like leave, get out of his room, and the door pulled shut, and like he like couldn't open it. He thought it was me messing with him, so he like hides in this closet and like sits in there for like 5 minutes waiting for me to come in so he could try and scare me, and then never came in. And then he went back and opened the door right up, and then nobody was home, and so he told me about that. And then we had a friend staying over in that room, and he woke up in the morning and looked up, like he had glasses because he had terrible eyesight. He like looked up and he thought it was our roommate standing there, and he was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" And then he like reaches over, puts on his glasses, and the person's gone. And so that's another experience. And then when we moved back, I didn't tell my wife about all these stories either, like before moving back in. And so like everybody has described this guy as like kind of like middle-aged, brown hair, kind of bowl cut almost, like guy that they keep seeing. And so we moved back in, and she told me, she was like, "Yeah, I had this weird dream that like I woke up and went into the room across the hall, and there was this guy that like I thought it was you for a second, but then he just had like this weird like his hair was different." And I was like, "Was it brown hair?" She was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Was it a middle-aged guy?" She was like, "Yeah." She was like, "How did you know?" I was like, "Oh, that's the ghost." And she was like, "No way." I was like, "Yeah, that's the one that everybody describes." And he's been pretty chill ever since. Like I've never really had a problem with him, but everybody else sees him.
I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
Ghost is one of those things that I definitely don't believe in by persuasion, but I choose to entertain because it just makes life more flavorful. I feel like it's like, it's so fun to imagine that maybe there's ghosts out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm like very superstitious. My mom was like very, very superstitious growing up, so I became very superstitious. And like Ouija boards, no way. You're like, you can't do a Ouija board. One time in college, one of my roommates wanted to figure out who this person was, so they brought a Ouija board in, and I said, no, we're not doing a Ouija board. And then I came home one night and they were doing it, and so I took it, threw it outside, and then I went in and got salt and did a circle of salt all around my house, like
really?
Just ran around. Everybody's like, "You're crazy." I was like, I'm crazy about not having angry. Like if I can make something upset and it's gonna mess up my whole life, I'm not gonna try to do that.
Yeah.
So like, I'm very cautious on the paranormal side.
That is really interesting. Like, so when you say superstitious, what does that mean to you? I guess like does that mean that you believe certain things or that you're concerned with certain things?
I guess it would be a healthy fear. You know, it's like it's a respect more
Of the paranormal in particular?
A respect of the paranormal. You know, it's like I've had experiences with things, and it's just like like when I was a kid, my grandparents live in Mississippi, like out in it's like, I don't know how many acres, but it's a pretty big plot of land. And there's like old houses that are kind of broken down out there, and they would always say it's the ghost house. And like one time I went out and I got a book from it and I brought it back, and then the next morning it was gone and it was back where it was. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, because nobody in the family, like I asked everybody, I was like, who put this back? And everybody was like, nobody. And I have it now. Like I took it. Nobody's taken it back yet. But just weird little thing. Like I've just always been fascinated with the paranormal too.
Yeah.
Like Zach Baggins, Ghost Adventures, it gets me every time.
I don't think I know what that is.
You've never watched Ghost Adventures?
I don't think
on
so.
the Travel Channel?
Is that the? I remember around the time that. No, I don't think it was the same show. Around the same time that like Pawn Stars and all that shit was kicking off, and American Pickers. I remember there was a ghost show then that was kind of popular, but I don't know if that was what it was.
That's definitely Ghost. Well, it's either Taps or it's Ghost Adventures.
Okay.
Ghost Adventures I love because it's like a bunch of bros, like just like, bro, did you hear that? And then like the host of it is like super aggressive towards the spirits. He's like very big on like taunting them to do something. He's like, come on, show me here. If you're real, come on, take me, And then he's like, goes to these, he's like, I feel real crazy right now. Y'all just give me a second, It's like, all right. I don't believe half of this, but I respect it. That's the healthy respect. It's like, this may be all for show, but I respect it.
Yeah.
Like just exorcisms and stuff like that. It's like, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to have anything like that bad juju on me,
Man, yeah. There's like, I don't know what to do with it. There's like such a long, not only is there such a long history of people making claims of this sort, there's also so many so many claimed eyewitness accounts of things of this sort, and then there's like, you could interpret that. I mean, you could interpret that a lot of different ways. Just like there's people can claim to see all sorts of things, but then there's like there's people who try to perform exorcisms, and like the evidence from those, like the audio recordings from exorcisms and shit, that's just like it's just, all I can say without being a persuaded believer of any of these things is that, like, at least all of these pieces together feels interesting and like somewhat compelling in some kind of way. I'm very skeptical. I was like a hardcore atheist for a long time that was just like rationality only, and everything is only physical in the brain. That's the only things that matter. Yeah. And so there's that part of me still that like laughs off anything that sounds old-fashioned or far-fetched or superstitious or whatever. But like there's this other part of me that's very silent sometimes. It's like, it could be for a good reason.
Yeah. I got, what was it that really, Dan Brown. So like I love Dan Brown's books, but he has one called The Lost Symbol. And they just made it a TV show as well. But I read that book and it changed my life, like put me on a different path, I feel like.
Really?
Because, I mean, I was always really into kind of like tarot cards and fortune tellers and stuff like that. But I'd never learned about, like, I'd never heard of metaphysics. It's like metaphysical sciences and everything. And that book got me kind of like on this track of like learning more and more about that. And then like Mason, like the like Freemasons, and then like all the esoteric stuff connected with that. Like I'm really big into esoteric stuff, like, because there's been different thoughts about what the brain is and consciousness is for thousands of years. It's like, and I feel like in today's day and age, like it's very straightforward. It's like there's science that is like, this is why you're happy, this is why you're sad, but back in the day they're like, oh, it's because you have too much of a bile inside of you, you need to go ahead and get some leeches to suck out this blood and drink this tincture. It's like the sciences of like the mind that have developed over the just millennia. It's like back in the day they were like, oh no, it's a ghost haunting your brain. It's like there's all kinds of different things like that. Yeah. But then getting further into like the esoteric and metaphysical world, it's like more about developing yourself. It's like,
what I understand about esoteric is understood by few. Is that the same definition that you're using?
Esoteric is, yeah. I'm talking more like there's I'm trying to think, like the Golden Dawn, like through the ages there's been like magicians. It's like not your MAGIC, it's the MIGICK. It's like the Aleister Crowleys and all that kind of stuff. Okay. But not going straight into that. I'm more into the like alchemy side. Okay. Like, so like alchemy, everybody thought it was like, when you hear alchemy, do you think turning lead into gold, right? But really underneath all of that, it's like the philosophy of like turning your soul is lead. That's the base metal you're working with, and you're trying to turn your soul into gold to like purify yourself, And it's just like, listening. I listen to a lot of audiobooks when I'm welding, and it's just like listening to that kind of stuff, just trying to like, it's all about enhancing yourself, like getting to the purest, most like the truest self you can be. And I feel like that's something growing older has been very big, because like I had a really bad alcohol addiction and then stopped, and then like just this growing period of like learning my relationship with vices, and because like my music's always been like, that was what I was just, it was like a diary of like my problems, you know, for a long time. And then I started changing into this new narrative about like I got really into the esoteric stuff, and it was more about like looking inside, like shadow work, like doing all this stuff where it's trying to make yourself a better person, but not just for yourself, but being a better like receptor for life. It's like, because you can write about relationships all day long, but building them and writing about building relationships or like building friendships, it's like I like that aspect of humanity, instead of just like, oh well, she broke my heart and she took my car, dang it. It's like I would much rather just like the new record we're putting out, it's a lot of it's like learning. It's called Fool's Journey. And so if you go into like tarot cards, the first 22 of the tarot cards are what's called the Fool's Journey, or some other people, like it's also known as the Hero's Journey. Like you'll hear in like film and like TV and life, the hero's journey you go through, and you meet all these different characters. So like if you're looking through the tarot card, that's like the progression of people that you meet until you get to the end and start all over again. It's like this cycle that you go through. And a lot of these songs are kind of like learning periods of like encountering different manifestations of life, but that's just a very complicated way of being like learning my like growing pains.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm so relieved to find out how many more people are fucking with the same stuff that I am in different ways, like, but still, I'm relieved, because sometimes in a super individualistic, lifestyle, it's, you're just not, you're mainly just like me. I try to practice like hardcore individualism and stuff in a particular way. And part of the reason is because I feel like so many people are like trapped in basically what I think of as the opposite of everything you just described. Like, kind of instead of going on this personal journey of discovering all these shadows and
I
stuff.
gotta be in this journey.
Yeah.
Like,
no, and like, well, I mean, like, oh God, I hate it's just that it turns into like political affiliation so much and stuff. And like, that's the big distraction from the real shit that you can do inside your own psychology to iron some shit out, Well,
I feel like we're bred to, that's getting bred out of us, is like the self-reflection. It doesn't matter anymore. It's like, everybody's putting their entire life on the internet hoping that people like it, and so like we've been kind of led down this road of like, oh, this is what you do to become famous. It's like, this is what you got to do to get your name out there, and you got to do it every day. You got to make sure you go and like all these posts, and you want to leave comments, you want to follow X amount of people every day, and then make sure you're on this other platform where you're doing all this different stuff, but don't talk about yourself. It's like, just follow what people are doing, just follow the road. Here's the roadmap. Just follow that roadmap instead of making your own path,
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what's kind of suffering in the world of like genuine creativity, is being stifled. Like
100% agree.
it's just like, can you be creative recreating what this person created from this person that created it for them? It's like, that's what kind of is today. And I hate it, but
I totally agree. I mean, that's like that's kind of what I think a lot of the social media forms it like it's also true that a lot of people, because of social media, are engaging in some level of creativity. But I think what you just described sounds like it's like engaging at the most basic surface level of creativity, which is just like impulsive reaction to somebody else's words. And it's like, it's a little uniform. It's a little like we're all doing the same thing. We're all interacting in the same way, and the humor is starting to all look the same and stuff.
Yeah.
And as far as deep, like what's deep creativity, like the depths that some brilliant minds have reached throughout our time as a species, that's not what is being celebrated right now.
That's not sellable.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, that's different. We need the same. It's like that's cool and all, but we're not going to push that.
When you were talking about shadow and tarot cards and stuff, a thought came to my mind, which is like, again, another, I guess, rationale for looking at life that way compared to looking at life in a materialistic kind of way, because it's like that narrative way of looking at yourself, that narrative way of looking at different potentials you have. And it sounds like maybe your chosen language for all that may be a little bit more in line with maybe alchemy, maybe supernatural stuff. I don't know, but even on a more maybe mine is more mythological, the stuff I tend to connect with more. But there seems to be some real benefit to organizing your path according to understanding, like, maybe the relationship between what it means to be pursuing the mindset of the hero's journey or the fool's journey, as opposed to like the fucking tyrannical underlord or whatever.
No.
Like, and I guess I don't think it's a bad thing to have language for that, especially because it's so interesting and culturally rich and stuff compared to not,
Yeah.
But it feels like a lot of people don't fuck with that. I guess that's where I started talking, was like, I'm surprised when I meet people who do fuck with that language.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the majority of people that I know probably don't fuck with that language so much unless they do it through Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's like, I was never really, like, our family, we never went to church and all that. And they were like, when I was a teenager, like, yeah, you can decide what religion you are, and I was like, I'm going to be a Buddhist, and then I didn't become a Buddhist, but, it's like, I've explored, I love religion, it's like, I love reading all the different types of religion and like the stories behind them. It's like the Bible. When I was in college, I took analytical study of the Bible, and it's just like breaking down like the stories and like the different themes, and, just like what they're really saying, what this could be inferring to, it's because I was a huge mythology, like you're talking about. It's like Greek and Roman. Like, I love all the myths, and there's all like, so Tom DeLonge from Blink-182.
Yeah.
He's got these books out called Secret Machines, Gods, and it's about breaking down how like the Roman and Greek mythology is actually extraterrestrial intervention. And that's like this big disclosure that they're trying to do, is like tell people, it's like, no, it's been aliens all along. It's aliens, it's like, I'm all about aliens and like learning about like even how crazy it can be, sometimes. Have you ever heard of Corey Goode? We might get banned for saying this, but
I don't know if that name rings a bell.
Oh man, you're missing out.
Yeah.
We went down a real hardcore rabbit hole. There's have you heard of Gaia TV?
I don't think.
Oh man.
Why is this controversial?
Oh man. So it's controversial because it's talking about a secret space program. Like he was recruited when he was a kid. He was in it for like 20 years. He was used it's because he was an empath.
Never mind. Go ahead.
So they would use these kids to interface with aliens to like tell if they're lying, because the kids would get a bad feeling if these aliens were like not telling the truth. And he's just talking about like how there's like these bird aliens that are in orbs that are surrounding the earth, and like it's just like it goes so crazy, it's like a whole new history of the world. It's like, and I just ate it up. I'll just sit there and listen for hours.
Yeah,
because I'm just like, yeah, that could be true. That'd be cool. That'd be a cool reality to live in. Because I feel like every day you wake up in a different reality, and some days I just want to wake up in a bird alien universe.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so like that's like a new hip thing these days is being an alien person. It's like, yes, no, I talk to the aliens, and they tell me, that's when I was in LA, I would go to see the psychic like every week. I would go, and I was spending too much money on sitting down for a half an hour, and she would tell me different things. And one time I got a guy, and he was like, "When you're songwriting, you're channeling, right?" And I was like, "What do you talk about?" He's like, "You're a channeler." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And he's like, "So when you're writing, it feels like you're not writing the song, right?" I was like, "Yeah, it just kind of pops in." Sometimes he's like, "That's channeling. You're connecting to a different plane, and they're feeding you the music." And so a lot of my career, I've just been like, I'm into that. I'm gonna believe that. I'm just gonna roll with. I'm gonna channel a song tonight. I'm not gonna write a song. I'm just gonna let it come to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think believing that definitely helps.
Yeah.
And it's like there is a question of like whether or not it matters if there's this part of me that is really reluctant to say this because I think truth is like my highest value, period. And it's the thing I believe in. And there's different ways to measure it. And one argument to be made is if truth can be defined as facts, truth can also be defined as something that brings about the behavior that you want it to bring about.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a pragmatic argument to be made that like by believing that what you're doing is channeling this voice that needs to be expressed, if that makes you write songs that you're happy with, maybe that's true enough to function.
Well, and I feel like it's more of channeling your subconscious. It's like there's a whole side of your mind that people, most people don't learn about their subconscious mind. It's like that's not something you just sit down. It's like, okay, y'all, today we're going to talk about subconscious versus conscious mind and how to tap into your subconscious mind. It's like no one ever really learns how to dive into their subconscious mind.
Very few people want to even look at it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's working harder than your conscious mind, and it's always on, and it's always there, and it sees more than you do, and it knows more than you do. And like tapping into that, it's like that whole aspect of, humans only use 10% of their brain. It's like, yeah, but you can use, like, I feel like that subconscious side is a huge part that just we need to unlock more of. And I spend a lot of time trying to live in or to connect with it, It's like I feel like that's the channel that I set up as like, okay, what am I really feeling, and like really listening to yourself and just spending time to just zone out and be receptive to whatever's going to happen. Because I'd get inspired a lot of times. Like sometimes I'll get a melody in my head and I'll work from there. Sometimes it'll just be like I wrote a song one time where I didn't want to go buy another pack of cigarettes, but I had a bunch of half-smoked cigarettes like out on the back porch, and it was just like chain smoking half-smoked cigarettes, and that was like, that's a song. We got to write that, and it's just, I don't know, it's a creative playfulness that you got to have with yourself,
Yes.
And I feel like people are always like, how do you write a song? It's like, I don't know. It just happens.
Yeah.
And it's just, but you got to let it happen.
Playfulness, though, I think is the right word. And I think, I had this, I have been through shifts, I guess, at different stages. And sometimes I do find it hard to get back into that playfulness. And I think that's what sometimes we call writer's block or whatever. And for me, when it gets too serious, that tends to be the thing. I tend to stagnate. And a buddy of mine told me once, like, I was like, yeah, I can't write anything. And throughout the conversation, this older, wiser buddy of mine was like, yeah, songwriters just give themselves too much personal credit for the things they write. It's just like, most of it's accidental. Most of it's like, you didn't even do it. Your brain, you just said things. And I'm like, you're right. And then like that night, I was able to start writing again. And I think it was like that idea of not giving myself credit for like being some kind of creative fucking
genius
and pioneer and stuff. It was like, yeah, that doesn't need to be there. Just fucking play with poetry.
Yeah.
And so, and that reopened the door. And that's probably happened a few times in my life. Playfulness and creativity is, I think, I mean, I can't think of anything maybe more significant to it than the willingness to adventure in that way.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, I mean, myself included, there's a lot of fear that comes with songwriting, you know, because there's like, you're judging yourself, you're afraid of like what other people are going to judge it as. These are all like steps you have to overcome and just like let go. It's like when I was younger, I was very, very hypercritical and always worried about what people are going to think, you know. And like these days, I'm like about to be 35, super chilled out now. It's like, if you don't like it, that's fine. I do. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, and especially since the reopening of the world, you know, it's like people have been, it was like a super high receptivity of music. And then now it's like everybody's so distracted about everything these days, and it's fine. You know, it's like I'm not very hopeful about the touring aspect of stuff, but I am very hopeful about the aspect of just creating a lot more and putting it out and just letting it live there, you know, and not focusing so hard on like, okay, we're going to do an album, we're going to go tour for 3 months straight, we're going to do all the PR, you know. It's like we're just going to put stuff out and play gigs that we like to play. And if somebody, like, if we jump up to like another level of going and like doing bigger shows, like that's cool. But like right now it's hard to get people to go out into the world anyway.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to get people to stay focused, you know. And it's just something that I'm not worried about making it my job to make people focus and care, you know. It's like, I care. And if you want to care, that's cool. But if not, there's going to be people that will enjoy it, you know. And that's why we started a beer review show, you know, because like when COVID was over, when COVID lifted up a little bit, we just started playing breweries because like that was like the outdoor gigs where it's like you can go and just kind of chill out. And so like we played just tons of breweries. And then we, as a joke, we hit up Odin and we're like, hey, the taproom manager, we're like, you should make a beer called Chuck Mountain Dew because that would be hilarious. And he was like, that's a great name, we should do it. And then they ended up doing a beer called Chuck Mountain Dew.
That's awesome.
And so we're like, man, like this beer aspect, like we all like beer. It's like I stopped drinking and then I started drinking just craft beers. Like I'll have like one or two, you know. And it's just like a way that I can still have a relationship with alcohol, but not like I can't do liquor because there's not an off switch. But I can get full off of like 2 beers and like that's not going to push me into like crazy man mode, you know? And so it's like a healthier relationship with it, but we're just all passionate about beer and playing breweries because like there's a different vibe when you play at a brewery than like a show, you know. It's like if a venue, it's like at a venue, like everybody's there, they want to hear some music, they want to hear the story. But at a brewery, it's like no, you'll get people like sporadically that are like, hey, I like that, you know. And it's just like you're not the main attraction, you're not why they're there, but you get to hang out, drink beers, and play music and do what you like to do. And I like it. It's fun, but it's just kind of shown how the attention span of people is these days.
Yeah.
So
I think that it's like just between me and you and everybody that keep this between us. I just don't, I think it feels weird to say, and I haven't thought this through all the way, but I think for some reason I have this suspicion lately that culturally we're just in a dip in I think like music isn't the forefront of how the necessary stories get told right now. And not that it couldn't possibly be, but like I keep having this suspicion that because things are so serious and like the threat, everything is so serious and threatening. I feel like that's why I'm noticing. I feel like people's attention to comedians is bigger and bigger and bigger. and I feel like it's their time right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like as things stabilize, it might become time for music again eventually. But I honestly feel right now like music, the role that it usually plays in life is kind of like on pause right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay. And I think it's great that like people like you and myself and other artists are still doing our thing and finding a way to, like in Winston right now, the thing is like, fuck it. If there's not an audience for this, we'll do it together. We'll just like do music things together as musicians and have a community rather than a sort of like artist versus audience kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's fucking cool, you know, to do that instead. And I think it'll come back around eventually. But so before I forget, so how can people check out this show? I want to check out this show, the beer show.
Brews Rock. It's on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. So if you go to just search Chuck Mountain on YouTube or go to our Facebook page, we have a whole playlist of them. We only have 2 episodes out right now, but this next week, Tuesday, there'll be one coming out for St. Patty's Day.
Very cool.
Which is very silly. I mean, it's just like a fun time for us to sit and drink beers and talk about it. There's nothing informational on the show. It's just like a bunch of guys hanging out and reacting to different beers.
Yeah, I think it's great.
It's like, because there's tons of Cicerones out there. We're not Cicerones. We're just guys drinking beer.
Yeah.
And just talk about it. And we're going to start like moving into, because we've been doing breweries that we go and play a show at like after it's released. And now we're going to be focusing more on just because my dad has a beer and wine shop down in Fuquay. So like me and him talk beer all the time. And there's so many beers out these days. Like there's so many breweries. There's so many different types of beer. And it's like a renaissance for art because like all the cans, like I don't think people understand how many different artists are working on beer right now because it's like every brewery has the different style of art that they put on their cans, and then there's like collaborations, and there's just like there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in the art world with beer, and even like with music too. You know, there's a bunch of musicians that have beers. There's like Iron Maiden. They kind of set the pace back in, I don't know when their beer must come out. Must have been in like 2015, maybe. They like came out with the Trooper, and it's a interesting beer. But I mean, we're moving into more themes instead. It's like 1 week we're gonna do like extraterrestrial beers. You know, it's like because there's like all kinds of different, like Dissolver up in Asheville. They're like very alien themed, but it's just like, you know, just having fun, trying different stuff because half of the beers we're never gonna have tried. You know? It's like I like reacting to just blind react to this random beer, you know. It's like I want to do an episode where it's like we cut the labels off. Like my wife will cut all the labels off. We don't even know what it is. We have to try it and figure out if we can figure out what kind of beer it is, maybe what brewery, any kind of flavors. Because like right now our kind of staples are, what do you taste? Would you drink it again? Where would you be if you were drinking this? And would you make it into a candle? And there's been quite a few that are not candle approved, but there's a couple that are candle approved.
That's funny, man. What is your kind of go-to beer?
My go-to beer, I'm really big into like the double IPAs these days because like I don't really like hops, but when you get a double IPA, it takes the hoppiness down like immensely. And they're just super smooth, and I can usually just have one and just be like, okay, I'm good for, like, I don't need another beer. It fills you up.
They're delicious, too.
They're so good.
Yeah.
Like, just the New England style. Like, I like hazy IPAs.
Yeah.
I used to hate IPAs, and then I started drinking, like, the craft beer IPAs instead of just, like, your, like, Sierra Nevada extra pale IPA, you know? It's just, like... like super bitter. Like
it's all like right there.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because like we've been drinking pretty much nothing but IPAs for a while, like as a band, just because we're always like, yeah, we'll just get the IPA, it's fine. And we did Odin's, like we did the Brews Rock for Odin's beer, and one of them was this blonde ale, and we like tried it, and it's like, this is awesome. Like, what have we been doing? We've been just like drinking these like crazy intense IPAs, and like this is like one you could just drink. It's very, very sippable. You know, it's like you can sit out and like have a couple of them instead of it's just like I'm gonna make it through this one, and that's it. You know.
I don't know why, but red is like. So I don't know if this opinion is informed by this or not, but red is like the color of like my soul or something. I don't know why, it just possesses me in some way, and it just so happens that red ales tend to be one of my favorite things, and I've had a few red IPAs too, and in both cases they just have this odd bitterness that I find really palatable. Yeah. But it could also be that my brain is giving it some extra love just because the word red is in there. Yeah, blue beers, I'm all about it. Yeah. Is blue your color?
Blue's my color. Blue's my color.
And you're kind of donning blue, it looks like.
Oh yeah, and some cat here. Yeah. I wish there was blue beers.
There's bound to be.
There's definitely Sweetwater blue, but it's not really blue.
There's Bud Platinum.
Oh man. I have not tried the Bud Light Platinum, but I should. Oh, because they just have. We're gonna do an episode where it's just like crap beer. It's like you're like worst of the worst, and just try to find like Keystone Light. Have you ever had a Keystone Light?
Keystone Light? I don't think so.
Oh man, I played a gig one time like out in California. It was like way up in North California somewhere, but I stayed on this ranch, and like in the morning. They woke me up at like 8:30, and they were like, all right, meet us out at the horseshoe pit. And I was like, okay. Like, get up, go out there, and they're like, all right, we're going to play some horseshoes. And then his wife comes out with a case of Keystone Light and some boar sausage that they'd made from a boar they killed the day before. And they're like, here's breakfast. And I was like, Keystone Light and some boar sausage. I could get used to this.
Where did you say this was?
It was in California. It was like right outside of Monterey. But it was so funny because I was just like, I was not expecting Keystone Light to be that good, especially at 8:30 in the morning. Yeah. And I was like, this is actually really refreshing beer. Like it's the flavor's not too in your face. Like it's a very water beer. Yeah. Like it's a hydrating beer.
I don't think I've ever had a beer in the morning. As much as it seems like that's something you have to do at some point to like fix a hangover or something, but I don't think I've ever done it.
Yeah, I that was probably one of the only times where I was just like, okay, well, I guess this is what we're doing today. You know, it's like if we're gonna drink a couple Keystone Lights and play some horseshoes, eat some sausage, then go play another gig tonight.
Yeah, do it, man.
Yeah.
So tell me more. We got to something I wanted to talk about, and then like went back off into other stuff, which is fun. And I think probably my fault, but I want to know more about the album you were talking about, like this Fool's Journey thing.
So okay, so we've been a band since I moved back in like 2017. I started working at Hop's Burger Bar, and because like we moved back and we just needed a gig, so I was working there, and then Sammy, our drummer, was working in the kitchen, like he was a fry cook, and he's like, yeah, I play drums. I said, yeah, sure. You know, it's like, and I was still coming off of like the Nashville vibe, and I'm like, okay, yeah. But like a big reason I came back here is to like try to help younger musicians like learn the craft and like getting out and playing, recording, you know. And so then I was like, he had bugged me about it for a couple weeks. So then I was like, okay, come on over. I'm going to throw my most intense music at you, and let's see if you can keep up, you know. And it was a little rough at the beginning, but like he was like really dedicated, really wanted to play. So we just kept playing, and like he's gotten so much better from like the very beginning. And then I was working at Guitar Center, and I hired our bass player as an instructor there, and then he became our bass player. And we've just kind of been working on becoming a band, you know. It's like becoming better at playing with each other, because I feel like a lot of people, they just kind of put together a band and then put out an album and it's there. Yeah. You know? So like the first couple of years we've been together, we were recording at Jeff's house because he had a studio in his house, and just working through finding the sound and all that kind of stuff. And then we went to Earth Tones, and have you ever worked with Benji?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, we went out there because we were like, let's just go get some bed tracks, and then like maybe we'll build off of that. And went in planning on trying to get like 3 songs, because we're like, we'll put out like an EP, you know. And we went in, and we've been playing a bunch of these songs for years, you know, and we'd never recorded them. And so we went in and we knocked out like 8 the first day. We're like, we should go do that again. And so then we knocked out like another 7 or something like that. And we just like bed tracks to kind of build off of, but it's like the most us that we've ever sounded recording. And we were planning on doing the EP, and then we were like, well, let's just do an album. Like, we got 15 songs. We're going to chop 5 of them, just find like the best songs out of the batch, and then see what kind of story. Like the lead one is called Fool's Journey, and it was just a song that I wrote over quarantine times, and it was just like it's about the fool's journey of like finding, like you start down this path trying to find the answers, and you're asking all these people where the answers are, but really you got to look inside. And then a lot of the songs that are on the album are going to be very internal, but like internal lessons, I guess is what we'll say.
Yeah.
But some of them are just cycles you go through in life, you know. It's like there's ones from the heavy drinking days, there's ones from learning about yourself, there's ones from learning about relationships in your past that you just can't get over, you know. It's like there's just all these steps of growing, and then that's why we're just like, Fool's Journey would be a good name, and we'll just put all these stories down that hopefully it'll help people understand a little bit about where we've come from, and just like as a songer, where I've come from, like all of the trials and tribulations, you know. But I don't know, it's just with this band, it's been very kind of laid back until we got that beer, just kind of kicked everything into gear. We're like, we got to do something now, you know, because we were just kind of doing it for fun, and then everything just changed with that beer. A good beer will do a lot for you.
With the Chuck Mountain Dew?
Chuck Mountain Dew, man.
Yeah.
I should have brought you one. 'Cause it's gone now.
Well, damn.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Trials and tribulations and such. I mean, this, like, I've done 2 projects based on similar things, like 2 recording projects that I would say, I mean, it changed my lifestyle for years, writing about some of the stuff that you've been describing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how much of you it like took to go to these places to like explore these things, because it sounds like it starts way back further than just when you met these guys and started this band.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely like there's songs we laid down that I wrote like back in Nashville, you know. It's like before even moving here, because like I wanted to. I got signed as a singer-songwriter, Beau James, to a label out of San Diego. And they were like very pushing me to be just singer-songwriter, very folk, like chill, sentimental songs, you know. And then I was like going through these really dark places at the same time, you know. It's like I had a real bad problem with alcohol, but it was just like more of a like, it was like punishing myself for no reason, you know. It's like, well, we're just going to go ahead and just keep getting super wasted, wake up the next day regretting everything, and then do it all again, you know. It's like, because that's the only way to fix it, instead of just like, it got to a point where I woke up the next morning, I was just like, I'm going to AA. Went to AA for like a month and a half, and then I was like, I think I got this on my, like, I have the willpower to just like not fiend for it, you know. And like just cutting out, because it was like beer I could have a couple, you know. It's like, but liquor, as soon as I touch it, it's just like never stops. It's like I'll go until somebody stops me, you know. And a lot of these songs are through that dark period, and then the narrative kind of shifts after you get out of it, you know. And like that's that fool's journey. As a lot of the time that I spent in Nashville and even LA, it was like I was trying to prove myself to people, you know. And then this album's more of trying to prove to myself, like what I've been searching for is I already have it, you know. You already know what you want in life. You just have to accept it, you know. It's like you got to accept the path you want to go down instead of just search for it, you know. It's like, because you can be like right now, the crazy busy schedule I'm working, you know, it's like I'm spinning all these different things and everyone's like, you're crazy. It's like, no, but I'm accepting it, you know. It's like, this is what I've accepted for myself, and accepting yourself as a person is really hard to do until you kind of go through these dark places of like, oh, this is why I was doing this to myself, this is why I had this viewpoint, you know. And it's just kind of this progression of stuff that you hear in the album, you know.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I'm different parts of what you were talking about gave me some version of chills where I was just like, "Fuck, I know what you're talking about," and like I remember this moment and shit, and like it's just comforting in some way to, like, I don't know, like relate to that effort and hear it expressed so similarly. I think to the way that I've like tried to been trying to navigate things, particularly this idea of accepting your vision for life. I don't know why that is so hard anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because we're in our 30s or what it is, but you know, after I had a full-time job, got laid off from that, and since then I've, like, post-COVID, I was able to identify what I can picture the life I want to have, and it's really hard to accept that it's like all on me and my own kind of ability to commit myself truly to that, and commit myself to the discipline necessary to achieve that and all of that, to go that road instead of going some road where I have a full-time job and make more money that way or whatever, and have a more comfortable sort of guarantee of things, and sacrifice other things to make that work.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating to be able to identify that and not always know how to make it right.
Yeah.
You know?
That's like, I feel like parents are a big part of that, you know. It's like right now, like going back to do Songfinch, right? I was like, hey, I'm going to get back in the Songfinch game. And my parents are like, whoa, what about welding? You know, it's like, you just went to school, and like I started a welding business, you know. It's like, and I'm like, I can still do it. Like, but I'm much more comfortable as a gig person, you know. It's like, as a musician, it's like, okay, I got 3 gigs this week. Like, that's the way my mind used to be, you know. It's like, but everything I do now, I'm looking more as like a gig. It's like, okay, so I'm booked to play music 2 times this week. I've got 3 projects that I'm booked to do for welding, and then I've got some bar gigs. I'm looking at everything more as like a gig, and how many gigs can I do in a week to maximize like all the hours I have, you know. It's like, because I'm still married and I gotta spend time with my wife, but the fun thing is she's helping out with a lot of this stuff, you know. It's like she does all of our filming, and it's just been a lot more fun having her be part of like the band stuff. But I'm teaching her how to weld, and she's going to start doing art projects.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's badass.
Yeah, women in welding is big these days.
Really? That's a thing.
Women are way better welders than men because they have a higher attention to detail. So like a lot of like the aerospace jobs and just like TIG welding, stuff that's like super intricate, like women are way better at, just because they have, like when I was in school, and the last like bit, it was like the pipe welding, and it was TIG pipe, super hard stuff to do. And there was a girl in her class, Holland, and she crushed it. And then even in all my classes, there was a girl, Casey. She was like the best welder in the class. Like, she'd outweld anybody, you know. And then Holland, she was like, hers compared to everybody else, it's like super nice, neat dimes stacked all the way around, you know. And it's hard to do that, but so I'm teaching her because she really wants to just make art projects for like lawn art and like wall art and things like that. And then I do more of the infrastructure type of stuff, like doing bar faces and building like shelving and all that kind of stuff for people. And because I like that, I like going and just it's definitely kept me in shape.
Yeah.
Like lifting heavy metal every day, you know. Maybe not every single day, but it's nice to space it out because I also have terrible carpal tunnel. And like when I was in school, like I started working at the steel yard right when I started school. So I was like lifting all this metal all day long, then going at night school, doing welding all night. And like I got like 2 weeks into working at the steel yard, and I couldn't open my hands because like they were like gripping all day that like I couldn't open them. So I quit the steel yard, and I was like, I got to keep doing welding, but like went through welding school like with numb hands pretty much all the time. So it's like, and music, it's hard too because like we play these 3-hour gigs and my hand will fall asleep half the time, you know, and you're just like, I hope I don't lose this pick that I think I'm holding still.
Might have to super glue it in there or something.
Yeah. I got like a nice callus built up on the back of my finger just in case.
Yeah.
But it's, gigs. Like looking at everything more as a gig.
I mean, I fuck with that. That's what I was doing until I started a new job last month, and it very well could be that my boss would listen to this. I don't know if he will or not, but it's like I'm grateful for that job and I'm doing it, but it's really hard because I'm still doing a lot of different shit. You know, I'm still doing a lot of different gig type work, and so I'm having a really hard time because I do also prefer that. I prefer the spontaneity. I prefer the surprise and the sort of like the activeness that it requires from my own mind to be like attentive to everything I have coming up.
Yeah.
And I don't like when it's just I'm just like coasting on kind of a really predictable path. I find for me as like I think as a creative person, I think that I find that really soul sucking and really like can cause me to go into depression and stuff.
Yeah. Well, definitely like the depression aspect of just being stagnant is, I feel like that is depression, you know, is just being stagnant and not knowing how to get out, you know. And I feel with me personally, it's like I've worked where it's like I have one job and then I have this fun thing that I do, you know, and that was like music was my fun thing, but this is where I make my money, you know. But looking at more as like, okay, here's my snapshot of a month. If I do X amount of these gigs and these gigs and these gigs, this is what it'll add up to. And that's like way more than I was making at my one job.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And we're in the kind of like our parents grew up and it was like you have a career and you work at that job until you retire. And nowadays it's like, now everybody's gig minded, you know. It's like everybody's more used to like having more than one job. Like pretty much everyone I know has at least 2 jobs, you know. But it's hard to stay focused on that when you have people like I love my family, but they're just like why don't you just do one thing? Like just make this your career. And it's like I've already made a career of one thing, you know. It's like, and I have room for more things to make a career. It's like my career is the collection of all the skills I have, you know. That's a career. That's a career isn't just working at the same job and retiring and being like, yep, this hat, got it out of my career. You know, it's like, I feel like everybody gets so worked up in words like career, you know. It's like life's work, you know. I feel like life is work and you got to work hard if you want to live a good life, you know. But there's tricks to it, you know. People know investing. I don't know that.
Yeah.
Like, I want to get better at the financial side of life.
I want to fuck with that too. I mean, that seems like so many people. It just seems necessary to tap into that, and it seems like it's real stupid not to. You know, everybody who has their shit really together is doing it, so it seems like a sign.
Yeah, maybe we'll go. I met an investment guy, so I'll clue you in on him.
Yeah.
He's got some good ideas, so.
Pass it along if you got something, got a good quick insight, because I'm very uninformed about how all that shit works.
Yeah.
But anything you got coming up? Do you know when your album comes out? That might be the best thing to touch on.
So we're gonna put out the lead single on May 20th.
Oh, okay. So that's good. This might be. No, we got time. So anyway, this will be out well before then.
Word. Yeah, May 20th. We're playing the Power and Sound Revival that day. So it's a festival out in Eden. It's like a motorcycle van, Like, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Very
But
cool.
we're trying to get a beer done for it. Like, we're trying to do a Fool's Journey beer to have at the festival. But definitely lead single's coming out then, and then the album's going to be coming out. We're shooting for October. So just got to start the old PR game after that.
Hell yeah. So is it like, what's the website?
www.chuckmountain.com.
Chuckmountain.com.
Yeah. But yeah, that's
cool.
That's where everything is.
Well, dude, it's very fun for me to jump into a conversation like this. You and I hardly spoke at all before doing this, and
Never.
it was so fun to like
Little
hear,
texted.
Yeah, like 3 emails and like 2 text messages, and it was super fun to like to jump into that conversation with you and like learn about you and shit. And thank you for coming out to this house so you don't know what the hell you're walking into and all. And
Coming down the road, it was very interesting. I missed it the first time, and then I was like, oh, I'll wait until there's like a place I could turn off. And I was like, I guess I'm just turning into one of these driveways.
yeah. There was a tree down.
Yeah,
Was that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There was a guy out there just chainsawing. I was like, I don't know if this is the right spot. But
Yeah.
I was like, I'm on somebody's property. They're going to shoot the back of my car. It's fine.
We shoot very few people out here, but
Very few is still more than none. You know?
no. But yeah, that tree fell over during all the wind over the last few days, and I don't know if you can tell that I smell like gasoline, but
Oh, I smelled it when I came in. I was like,
yeah,
somebody's been chainsawing.
Indeed, yes. Well, thank you for taking the risk and
Yeah.
coming over and hanging out with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I guess we'll shut it down for today, but we'll talk again.
All right.
All right.
I'm into it.